So right off the bat, before we begin, I'm going to make this very clear because some people, well, they quite frankly, they lack the mental faculties to grasp nuanced arguments. So let's say this from the beginning. Yes, people used to get tortured under Bashar al-Assad's government, and they used to get tortured in Sednaya prison. That's not sarcasm. It's not a joke. It's true. It's true. People will get tortured. This is reality. You know, there's no need for people to fabricate propaganda about that. But unfortunately, CNN are doing that. You know what I mean? Like, there's no need to exaggerate it. You could just report on the torture as it happened. But for some reason, even after the guy is gone, they're still churning out propaganda. And they brought none other than Clarissa Ward, right? So you've seen her doing this stuff before in Syria as well. And I'll go back to her greatest hits in a moment, but I just want to show you this video that they put out, which again is so completely unnecessary. You could just report about the things that actually happen without resorting to this, okay? So just watch the video. It's really, I mean...
I can't tell though, it might just be a blanket, but it's the only cell that's locked.
Is he gonna shoot it?
The guard makes us turn the camera off while he shoots the lock off the cell door. We go in to get a closer look. It's still not clear if there is something under the blanket.
Oh, it moved. Is there someone there? I thought I saw it move. Is someone there? Or is it just a blanket? I don't know.
I think it's someone.
Hello?
Okay, it's just moving.
Oh.
I'm a civilian, he says. I'm a civilian. He tells the fighter he's from the city of Homs and has been in the cell for 3 months.
Okay, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
He clutches my arm tightly with both hands.
Okay. Does anyone have any water? Water. My. Okay, it's water. It's water.
We're not done, by the way, but it's not looking very convincing, is it? You know, if you're someone who's actually tortured, and again, this is not something that's, let's remember exactly who was doing the torturing. A lot of the torture in Syria was being done by the CIA, by the way, which the fact that they had that deal is kind of despicable on Syria's behalf, regardless, right? Like, it doesn't make it okay, and they use that as a legal loophole. But regardless, you know, it wasn't just the CIA. They've got torture everywhere, so let's not act like Syria is the most egregious of all the actors in the world. It's not, but it did happen. And my point is that if you have been tortured in Syria and you're watching this, it's like, you know, I'd feel like you're making fun of me, honestly. If I were that person, do you understand what I mean? It's like, what is the performance for? You could just interview someone who has had that happen to them. You don't have to go through the whole. I mean, look at this. You know, like, oh, is someone there? Like some. You know, like when they're filming some horrible B horror movie, and they're going down like some staircase, and is somebody there? I mean, come on, really? Yeah, obviously someone is there. You can tell they're sleeping. I mean, what is this like? And then the way he gets up, and he's just like immediately with the hands up. You know, one thesis that I've heard put forward is that perhaps this guy used to work in the prison and is pretending to be a prisoner, and so maybe he was trying to pretend he's asleep. I don't know. That's the problem with this, is that it looks so staged that we have to ask a million different questions, and it's unnecessary. But you know, and just the way that they speak is like, yes, it's water. It's water. Well, obviously it's bloody water. You said that.
Okay. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
You're okay. You're okay. Okay, fine. I get she's trying to comfort him. And then they go outside, and it just continues.
After 3 months in a windowless cell, he can finally see the sky.
So he's saying finally, you know, he's saying those light, and the other guy's telling him, into Harry, you know, you're free. Honestly, man, fine. That's normal. That's normal reaction. I'm not talking about that. But the way he looks, you're telling me he's been in there for 3 months. 3 months. The guy just doesn't look like he's been in there for 3 months. I mean, look at his nails, first of all. Like, this guy has manicured nails. And you're telling me he's in a torture cell. It's not just a cell. Like, we're supposed to... They're telling us that this is, like, one of the worst dungeons in Syria, right? So, it doesn't match. It doesn't add up. And once again, I don't understand the need to do this. And it's not the first time that Clarissa Ward, this woman specifically, does something like this. Right? She loves these dramatic productions. Do you remember when she was... Look at this. She was diving on the floor, on the ground... and saying, oh my God, there are, when was this? This is a few months ago, I think, in Palestine, right? And you've got people casually walking by next to her. It's the same reporter, right, for CNN. You've got people casually walking on the street, and she's saying, oh my God, it's a missile attack, and she dives on the floor, and yet other people are walking around normally. Like, it's so badly done. It's like such a cheap production, you know, as long as it fits the CNN narrative. And again, not the first time. So before this, she was in Syria a couple of years ago. Okay. Let me show you this. I'm sure you all remember this one. Okay. This is probably her most famous appearance, or her most
There's definitely something that stings. These backpacks.
Is that Clarissa Ward? People are saying it's Clarissa Ward, but now that I'm looking at it, it doesn't look like her, honestly. I can't tell, but it's still CNN. You know, you get the point. It's still in Syria. It's still CNN, okay? And this was supposed to be evidence of a chemical weapon attack, okay? Do you know what a chemical weapon is? Like, that stuff is well, I mean, depending on what it is, if it's, you know, mustard gas or anthrax, or, you know, it's going to kill you. It's going to kill you. You don't, you know, go and sniff it for a little sniff test. It's not a fart or something, you know, it will kill you. So why would you get near it and then sniff a backpack? I mean, do you understand how ridiculous this is? Because that's what they were alleging. They weren't saying, oh, you know, like Bashar al-Assad dropped down from a helicopter and sprayed people with chlor. No, they were saying this was a deadly chemical attack, and she just bends over and starts sniffing the backpack, and he's also handling it with no gloves. Like, yeah, you know, you just casually touch chemical weapons. No, it's just a weapon of mass destruction. So do you see how ridiculous this whole CNN reporting and narrative has been in Syria for a very long time? And once again, the chemical weapon stuff we know is BS, okay? Like, I've reported on that. We have the WikiLeaks documents. That's definitely a bunch of bollocks. But the torture stuff is not. People were tortured in Syria. There's no need to go and start making up evidence of torture, or, like, you know, trying to pull on people's heartstrings by filming a guy who's found in the dungeon. By the way, in Sednaya prison, so that's allegedly where they filmed this propaganda piece, yeah? Over here. People searched that dungeon. They searched that whole prison. You know, they went through it multiple times. They searched every inch of it. There's nobody left in there. And you notice when they say the guard is about to shoot the lock off of the door, but he told us to turn the camera off. Why would you have to turn the camera off when you're shooting the lock off of a door? If anything, you would perhaps turn it off when you've discovered that there's a prisoner who's been there for 3 months and who is in no condition to be filmed like some, you know, lab rat or some kind of, you know, freak, right? That you could understand. Like, they just don't want a camera in their face because they've been tortured. But instead, the only moment is when he allegedly shoots the lock off of the door. I mean, why would you hide that? Isn't that heroic? Look at me, like I'm freeing someone from a torture dungeon. Why would you not want them to film that? That doesn't make any sense, first of all. But in any case, you don't need to do this, and yet they go and do it. And it's just, again, this whole problem with the Syrian opposition, with the line on Syria. It's like they got the country, okay? They got power at all, you know, and they did it at the expense of the whole country. I mean, really at the expense of everybody, okay? They're so power hungry, they got the goddamn thing, and they're still going. They were saying the other day that in this dungeon in Sednaya, you had 150,000 people in there. There's no prison in the world that can fit 150,000 people. That's larger than a football stadium inside of one facility. Do you understand the amount of ventilation? Forget the food. Do you understand the amount of electricity and ventilation that you would need to have 150,000 people under the ground in a torture dungeon? I mean, it's just ludicrous. It's like when they say, the Israelis say, well, you know, there's an underground James Bond villain facility at Al-Shifa Hospital. Or Bin Laden's lair. You remember, we talked about this last time. You remember that graphic they published? I can't remember where they published it. I think it might have been actually on CNN, ironically. It literally, I have a book. I have like a book from when I was a boy with all these like layers, you know, from the James Bond villains. It looks like someone opened that book and just copied it out of there and said, this is what Saddam Hussein I think it was Bin Laden has under the ground. And it's a drawing. It's just a bloody illustration, and they expect you to believe it. And so they keep doing these same things: weapons of mass destruction, massive underground facilities that we can't show you, but we just so happen to have 3D renders of. I mean, and people still buy this. They still eat it and gobble it up. They still do. You know, it's quite bizarre. It's quite bizarre. And I just don't understand why the first thing you would do with someone who's been in a cell, who's allegedly been tortured for 3 months, is sit the guy down for an interview. Who has the energy? Forget torture, by the way. Like, let's say he was just there without being tortured, which in and of itself is you know, it's awful. It's awful to put someone in those conditions for 3 months. But even then, you would not take this person and say, oh yeah, do you want to do an interview? You rush him to a bloody hospital. You take them to a bloody hospital. You give them medical attention first, and then you worry about interviewing them. You don't just, you know, harass them inside of a hovel as soon as you discover them. So a lot of this doesn't make any sense, you know, because that's what they do. Look, they just sit him down and it's interview time, you know.
My God, the light, he says. Oh God, there is light. My God, there is light. Okay. Stay with me, stay with me, he repeats again and again. For 3 months, I didn't know anything about my family. He says. I didn't hear anything about my children. The fighter hands him something to eat. He can barely lift it to his mouth.
Okay.
But his body can't handle it.
Okay, you're okay.
His captors fled during the fall of Damascus, leaving him with no food or...
You know, I'm sorry, but that's way too much touching, and this is very, very, very impermissible and illegal in today's Syria. And if you think I'm joking, wait till I show you the next segment. But I think you get the idea. I think you get the point. There's really no need for all this, but you know, given the backpack sniffing and smelling that we had, you know, back in the day, it's all manufacturing consent, right? It's all manufacturing consent. So, and what's sad is that, like I was saying, you got people being tortured, but instead of fighting Israel, they were using the prisons as an excuse to say, well, there's no time to fight Israel right now because, you know, we have to empty the prisons. Now you ask yourself, you ask yourself if that makes any sense, and I'll defer judgment to you. Okay, I'll let you decide if that makes any sense, because that's what a lot of people who supported the revolution were saying, right? And once again, I don't understand how they searched every single inch of Sednaya prison, and the only one that, you know, that they forgot about someone, and they get found by CNN. Doesn't that seem weird to you? Everybody was freed, but at this point, everybody was liberated. How is it that there's one person they missed and then CNN finds them out of all the people? I mean, this is, come on, this is ridiculous. And another thing that needs to be said, listen to me very well. What happened is that they liberated all of the prisons, all of the prisoners in all of the prisons. Okay, so I'm not talking about this one specifically, Sednaya. I'm speaking in general. What this new government regime, rebels, whatever you want to call them, the usurpers did is they emptied all of the prisons. Now, you can't tell me that every single one of those people was a political prisoner. Because what I'm saying is, yes, of course, political prisoners should be released. No one who is innocent of a crime should be in those jails, obviously, in any jail, never mind tortured, right? Political prisoners, they should all be freed. Yes. No one is disagreeing. But what about rapists, for example? What if you let a rapist out without a proper judicial review? What about if you let a serial killer out without proper judicial review? You're telling me that we're getting rid of Bashar al-Assad, who is a big baddie dictator, a boogeyman, and we're replacing that with democracy, right? And in a democracy, you have, a judiciary, you have due process. The courts do their thing. You allow the judges, the lawyers, you allow simply put the judiciary as an organ of the state, to just do its job. But you let out everybody without even reviewing their cases. Just, come on, here's just get out of the jail, even if it includes mass murderers or includes war criminals. That doesn't make sense to me. Do you understand? There's no order in this whole process. That's not how you build a country. That's how you bring on chaos, right? So yes, again, no one should be tortured. No one is debating that. We all agree no one should be tortured. We all agree political prisoners shouldn't be in prison. No one's debating that. The problem is that what about actual legitimate criminals that were in prison for murder, rape, for theft? I don't know. Those people. Are you sure that you should just be handing them the keys and then saying walk out back into society? I'm talking about not just in a normal prison. No one is saying they should be tortured. Do you get what I'm saying? There is no judicial process here, and this shows you already that what these people are promising isn't very promising, pun intended. Okay, it's not looking good. It's disorderly, it's chaotic, and it's not how you build a functioning state. This is only going to lead to chaos. Do you grasp what I'm trying to say? And not to mention the fact that if you're saying, okay, Bashar al-Assad is a butcher, he's got to go, and now you got rid of him. Well, what about Jolani? Is he not a butcher? What about his henchmen? What about all the people in Hayat Tahrir al-Sham? Did they not terrorize Syrians? And then you're going to say, well, we needed violence to get rid of the violent regime. I'm not talking about that. I'm asking again, are these people in Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, in Al-Nusra Front, in Al-Qaeda, are they not butchers as well? Of course they are. Did they not terrorize Syrians as well? Of course they did. Why are you overlooking their crimes? Why are you putting violent people in power to get rid of a violent man in power? How does this make sense? This is a brazen, ridiculous contradiction. You want to build a new country? You don't need those people. Okay, you got rid of Bashar al-Assad. Why? You don't need Al-Qaeda to be in charge now and to be heading a transitional government, do you? You don't need those violent people to have any post or position of power, do you? You don't actually need them. But for some reason, no one seems to see the contradiction in all this. Very weird, right? Here, I'll show you another masterpiece that came out. This is not CNN, but it speaks for itself.
مرحبا، انت شو اسمك حبيبي؟
عمر.
شو عم تساوي هون؟
عم دور على بابا.
بابا هون حدا قال لك انه هون بصيدنايا؟
ايه مدور عليه انا وعمامي ايه.
من ايمت ما شفته لبابا؟
صار لي 14 سنة.
قديش عمرك انت؟
أنا 10 سنين.
Okay, hold on. What? So they're talking about Sednaya prison. Okay, that's again the notorious dungeon. What did he just say?
شو عم تساوي هون؟
عم دور على بابا.
بابا هون حدا قال لك انه هون بصيدنايا؟
ايه مدور عليه انا وعمامي ايه.
من ايمت ما شفته لبابا؟
صار لي 14 سنة.
قديش عمرك انت؟
أنا 10 سنين.
So he's 10 years old and he's been looking for his father since he was -4. Okay, look, I mean, the guy's a kid, like maybe he just miscounted. But you know, it's again, it's like all this exaggeration that's coming out. When they were saying 150,000 people, it turns out it was 4,300, I think. 4,300, I think, was the number of people that were in the jail. Why do you have to say 150,000? Like, if you know, it's like you're taking attention away from the actual, you know, the actual issue, right? Anyway, I think it speaks for itself, and I think the point is well taken. And the problem now is that, listen, the problem now is that instead of focusing on building a better country, all they're doing is they're just acting like plungers. Oh, but Assad did this and Assad did that. You got rid of the guy. He's gone. He's in Moscow. Can we move on now? Can we get to that part of with the milk and honey, you know, of all the good things you wanted to massacre half the country for and caused half the population to be displaced? Can we fucking get to that? Is that okay with you now? No. We got to inflate numbers with Sednaya. We got to do this and that. You know, it just never ends because they're not interested in actually doing anything for Syrians. They're interested in you know, just having power. It's just about the power grab. Once they got the power, they don't actually have to go and do anything else. You understand? So that's it. They've got it, and now they're just gonna replace the old regime, as they like to call it, every single day with whatever brand of authoritarianism it is that they have, which I'm going to explain in a second when we get to that. And let me point out another thing. Because when they keep saying, you know, there was torture, he's a butcher, the murderous regime, all these things. Why don't they ever say these things about Egypt? Are you going to sit there and tell me Egypt do not have mukhabarat? They don't have, you know, the security services in Egypt torturing people? You remember that guy from the State Department who was harassing a hot dog vendor or a street vendor in Washington? I don't know, or was it New York? And then he's telling him, I'm going to get my friends in Egypt to pull out your fingernails. Because that wasn't an empty threat. It's because the Americans run the Egyptian mukhabarat. But torture in Egypt is fine. The Egyptian dungeons are fine. Why? Because Egypt plays nice with Israel. That's why. You understand? The dungeons in Jordan, those dungeons are fine. They're beautiful because Jordan has relations with Israel. Jordan is not a threat to Israel or a threat to America. Jordan is a nice, submissive doormat. You understand? Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, you're telling me these countries are shining democracies? They don't torture people? No one is saying torture is good. I'm trying to show you that when you're an American or Israeli ally and you torture people, suddenly CNN are not there to film it. Suddenly Amnesty International don't have any reports to write about you. Suddenly you're not front page news in the New York Times. All of a sudden, human rights for dissidents in those countries, we just look the other way. What does that tell you? That tells you that when they talk about Syria, they don't actually care about Syrians, they don't actually care about human rights, and they're probably lying to a certain extent or exaggerating to a certain extent. That means use your critical thinking skills instead of just swallowing everything the mainstream media tell you. Thank you, good night. Again, YouTube demonetized my channel because I'm not allowed to say naughty things about Israel. You know, telling the truth is forbidden. So if you are able to donate a few dollars on PayPal or on a monthly basis on Patreon, please consider doing it because it would really help me continue my journalism and support independent media. So I'd be very grateful. And the links are in the description and also in the chat. Thank you guys very much again for all your donations and all your kind comments. I appreciate it very much.